I have been thinking a lot about my artistic heroes, inspirations lately. Not just current ones, but ones that I found in my most formative years as a creator. One of those I'm going to talk about today is Diane Arbus. I came across her work probably in the history of photography class I had, maybe like 1998, 1999. I did have a professor who had managed the Kodak Eastman Museum, always referred to her as Diane Arbus, not Diane Arbus. I'm gonna go with Diane Arbus because I have no other frame of reference to call her Diane. Photographer associated with the street photography movement of the 1960s, really famous for having unusual subjects. These could include nudists, giants, people of extraordinary size, people with physical or mental disabilities, people who are, I hate to use the word outcasts of society, but they were not represented in photographs or media at the time. She had strong empathy towards these subjects. They were not so bizarre, they're interesting. They were, I think, people that she tried to understand. This particular book that I got from my local Chandler library, Revelations, is such a wonderful book. I want to share it with you guys. It's not just photographs. It includes journal entries, other people's perspective on Arbus. I do want to set up the fact that she took her own life, and it's never really been made clear why that happened. No note was left. There is a good movie about her called Fur, where Nicole Kidman portrays Arbus, and you can see through Kidman's portrayal that she was a very sensitive soul, someone who has to feel everything. I relate to this so much. I think a lot of the other artists who are empathetic healer types, INFPs, if you're into the Myers-Briggs personality classification, we deliberately, I know this is a deliberate act, we deliberately try to reach out and feel, experience everything around us. So if we go to a museum and we're looking at the artwork in front of us, we try to connect with it through an emotional level and a cerebral level, any level, but we have to open ourselves up to connect to artwork, to other human beings. And sometimes it's not positive stuff that comes our way, you know. I'm in transition from 12 plus years shooting art models to something else. And I don't know what that something else is, but that's part of why I'm looking at my fundamental heroes. You know, how did Sebastião Salgado change when he was too affected by the conditions that he saw around the world, but in particular, the genocide in Rwanda? Well, he changed by focusing on history, landscape, animals, nature. He reconnected that way. So I want to know what challenges Arbus faced, how she dealt with her subjects, how she found her subjects, what she really thought about the art that she made. And we're going to take a look at this book together. A lot of the stuff that I'm going to be looking at is stuff that I haven't even seen because I was so excited when I cracked this baby open. I felt like this is one of those unboxing type videos that I should just go through it with you on YouTube, and we're gonna pick out some gems, and I'm gonna talk to you about my own initial reaction. One of the things that I've always tried to do in my own photography and that I can see present here is not only capture a real emotion happening in front of the camera, but get atmospheric, ethereal elements. And her hair blowing in two different directions at once, the motion on her nightgown gives it like a ghostly presence. This might not be a living child, this might be a spirit in child form. INFP personality types tend to have tighter connections to their inner worlds, their dream states, than they do with reality. And I would love to explore the psychology of that more. I think that's what Diane is doing in images like this. This is Carol Baker on screen in Baby Doll with Silhouette. This is the kind of image that's so far ahead of its time, because one of the themes that you see a lot in movies, music, TV, bands like Radiohead and Muse explore this a lot, is the idea that our screens and the stories told on screens are the bigger reality which we normal, boring, basic people live through. This little silhouetted viewer is not even a participant in all this amazing stuff that's happening on screen. And I don't know what's happening on screen. I don't know if the person is in pain, if they're making love. I don't know what's happening here. But this is like ethereal dream world, and this is just a blank hole to be filled. And the fact that we can tell it's kind of an older gentleman, receding hair, if not bald completely, and just in a very basic position. There's nothing exciting about him at all, other than he's a receptacle for the story being told. Now, street photography is something that I'm not an enormous fan of, but only because it doesn't achieve the level of Diane Arbus. I feel like a lot of street photography that you see today is literally people on the street, and maybe they're dressed cool. You know, maybe it's just a brief encounter the photographer had and said, hey, I thought you were an interesting subject. But this woman with her eyes closed is having some sort of transcendent experience. She's obviously an older lady, but she has very primped hair, makeup. You can tell by the darkness on her lips, nice clothes. It reminds me of work that it looks like she's experiencing some sort of memory. If anything else was in focus in this photo, I think it would be ruined. But the fact that it's so singularly focused on her transcendent experience, everything else is just kind of like ghosts moving around her. Going back to some of the earlier Arbus photos, I feel like that's one of the main themes she's trying to communicate, that we're barely tethered to this world and that our interactions with other people are temporary. And when we are connecting with people, it's, you know, this is a wax statue, but it looks like a murder is happening here. The trauma of childhood. One of the amazing things about this photo isn't just the emotion that this kid has, the spit coming straight down off his face. We have like 3 emotional archetypes happening. We have trauma of childbirth and being thrust into the world. You have the proud, happy new mama. And then you have this anonymous guy, probably another one of her kids. We don't know the story, but suddenly he's no longer the focus of her love and attention. It's this guy, and he's just disappearing into the background like he didn't even matter. And to pair that with this photo, this is a couple on a pier in New York City. This guy just has it all. He's got his radio, he's got a doting lover looking at him, he's got the cool ocean, great weather. Within these 2 pages, you have such a huge range of human experience. I love them. It was a great pairing, whoever curated this book. One of her more famous photos, patriotic young man with the flag. So cheerful, such a bad face, so much crazy textures going on here. American Rights, Manners, and Customs. This is Arbus's plan for a photographic project. An amazing way to write up a proposal for a grant. I'm probably going to copy this in my own grant proposals, which I haven't done very many in my career, but I think it's time now that I'm inspired. I want to photograph the considerable ceremonies of our present because we tend, while living here and now, to perceive only what is random and barren and formless about it. So the kind of ceremonies she's looking for: pageants, festivals, feasts, conventions, ceremonies of competition, contests, sports, and games, ceremonies of buying and selling, of gambling, the beauty parlor, the funeral parlor, or simply the parlor. And it's paired with a photo of a dance competition. You get to see their trophy, the awkwardness on their faces, but the elegance of their movements. A very young baby, New York City, 1968. So angelic. The darkest part of this photograph, which would always be the part that would attract your eye the most, is usually wherever there's black in it. And the only solid black is at the edge of this frame where the negative carrier has been cut. or I find that so interesting. Could have continued up to the head. The black of the negative carrier in there, it's like the ceiling. Whatever reason, it adds quite a bit to this photograph. And I've heard photo professors I've had poo-poo using the edges of a photograph. They say it's gimmicky. I don't think so at all. I think whatever mysterious reason it's there separates this from, say, Anne Getty's photograph of a baby that might be sleeping and angelic looking. There's just this harsh edge to it. There's just this harsh edge, and there's a harsh edge to it, and it really completes the photo for me. There's a harsh edge to it, and it's very unsettling, and I feel like it really completes the photo. From a postcard. From a postcard she wrote, "We stand on a precipice, then before a chasm, and as we wait, it becomes higher, wider, deeper. But I am crazy enough to think it doesn't matter which way we leap, because when we leap, we will learn to fly. Is that blasphemy or faith?" Another young political type, boy with straw hat, waiting to march in a pro-war parade, 1967. Funny how these young hawks are so kind of geeky and pimple-faced, and I guess the equivalent today would be incel culture, which would be an interesting photographic subject on its own. I'm sure it'd be quite embarrassing for the subjects to be classified as incels. And that's one of the difficulties if you're a photographer known for doing work that isn't particularly flattering to your subjects, but is interesting. If people know you and they can look you up on their phones, they might see that they're probably not going to be portrayed in a flattering light, or they might not know the difference. I'm not sure. If someone like James Brown, for example, were to see himself in this light, I'm not sure if he would be happy with this photograph. It's an amazing photograph of him, but he looks bored. He's getting his hair done by somebody else. He doesn't look particularly manly in this photo. I mean, it's very hard to say, we want to do interesting photographs of you. We don't want to make you look your best and then have somebody say yes back to you. I think nowadays everybody wants to look their best. And they assume that you're going to clean up every bit of acne, every stray wrinkle on them. Another one of her classic, most famous photographs. The story I heard behind this, and I've seen the contact sheet because there's a bunch of pictures of this kid, is when he finally gets to this expression, it's like, "Take the picture!" Because he was sick of standing and posing for Arbus. Now, how she ended up with a kid with a hand grenade and wearing this shirt that has kind of the same pattern on it, I don't know. I mean, that's just serendipity at its best. Not to mention his one suspender coming off the side. Incredible subject. Incredible. Everything about this photograph is incredible. I can't say enough good things about it. So those are some of the highlights of this book. You know, if I wanted to make this video 2 hours long, we easily could. I had to skip a lot of stuff that involved nudity. She shot a lot of strippers. She shot at nudist camps. Nothing that's going to ruin your life. It's all incredible work, sensitive towards the subjects, exploring human emotion and feeling. If you can't get your hands on Diane Arbus Revelations, any good web search deep dive is going to take you to some of the most amazing, emotional, soulful images ever shot in the history of photography. Almost all of her writings say something profound and touching and let you know that photography isn't just a mechanical process. It isn't just a matter of finding subjects, making images, putting them out on the web for content creation or, you know, showcasing your abilities. There is absolute mind and heart that go into creating images of this caliber. I have to be honest and say that for the kind of work that I want to make and think about and take in and enjoy, she might be my favorite photographer of all time. Folks, thanks for taking this deep dive with me into the works of Diane Arbus. Incredibly soulful artist, her own unique space in art history, not just photographic history. Whatever demons she was dealing with, they eventually got the better of her, same with many of my other INFP artists, but that's one of the reasons why I take the time to look at their stuff, investigate them, find out the context in which the artwork was created. Because as much as I want to incorporate the feelings of the world and I want to create work that is emotionally resonant with myself, that connects to other people who are feeling the same way, feeling like outcasts, feeling marginalized, I never want to let that get the best of me. And I think most of us who are empathetic, healing, investigative kinds of creators want to explore themes that might end up hurting us, might end up damaging us. I'm trying to learn how to protect myself while being someone close to as fearless as Diane Arbus, as Sebastião Salgado. I know I'm not going to be there. I know I was raised in such a safe environment in the 80s and the 90s. And I know I have my kids to fall back on if I ever get bored or lonely. You know, my life is probably nowhere near as rough as any of these wonderful creators, but I'm hoping that I can discover something in myself and the artwork that I want to make and the artwork I can make through the works of my heroes. So thanks for spending a little time with me and with Arbus.